let's go to the next topic because there was some other fights in another sport that took place on Saturday night. Arguably the biggest winner of the weekend. No disrespect to Alex Perez, but Platinum, Mike Perry. How about him, man? Not just at the win column, but cha-ching, right? We'll get to that in a sec. I mean, this guy is a star. BKFC had their biggest show of the year, and Perry main evented versus former UFC title challenger Thiago Alves. And by the way, Thiago Alves headlined UFC 100. We just had UFC 300, so that was a while ago, but he's still chugging along, or maybe not after this last fight. Anyway, what was your reaction to the win goes? Mike Perry just, again, like I said in the intro, waxing fools and taking names.
He was absolutely made for this sport, right? Like if you're new to BKFC and you see Mike Perry, your first intuition isn't to like look up his record or anything. You see his look, you see the scowl on his face. I mean, you want to know when's he going to do it next. And I know we're going to get to the salaries. He made a good amount of money, and I think he's worth every single penny. I was actually excited about this fight. I know Thiago Alves hadn't fought in a long time, and I get that, but he's a big dude. He had size. I thought he was maybe going to push Mike around a little bit more, and not too much of that fight really played out. He hit him with the perfect shot right on the chin, and poor Thiago, man, he tried to give it as much as he could to get back up and give us more to that fight, but at the end they decided to stop it. So just it's another win for Mike Perry. Almost as important as the fight with Mike Perry is when you give him that mic, and boy, did he go off. He went absolutely crazy, calling out everyone. He set up his next fight. The guy kind of gets it, especially in this sport. This is just his domain, and I can't wait to see this guy fight again. I get so excited when this dude's on a card. So he's bred for this. He's perfect for this, and it's just another statement win for this guy.
The king of violence, man. Look at him. He's got some swag. He's got his tats, and he's got some fists. Nolan, what did you think of Platinum's performance throughout the week, culminating with that vicious KO?
Yeah, as Ghost said, if bare knuckle fighting was a person, it would be Mike Perry. So it's very appropriate that he's fighting for them. He's exactly what they need. I think it's great to use the names of yesteryear to help boost promotions as long as the fighters are still capable of competing. I get that business model, but I think you need to have in order to be your own brand, you've got to have your own guys. And Mike Perry is their guy. I mean, he is the BKFC guy right now. So the fights themselves, like the top few, I think maybe weren't necessarily the most action packed. We had some weird finishes going on. And this fight was kind of quick, but I think it was another good step forward for bare knuckle, holding an event at Peacock Theater right across from where the Lakers were playing in their playoff game. George, sorry about that, man. We won't talk too much.
Why you gotta bring them up?
Yeah, that was a low blow. I'm sorry. Make sure to watch the Celtics tonight, but just to see how it's done. But great event for bare knuckle. I think those KnuckleMania events, it's good for them to have their tent poles. It's good for them to kind of maybe go all out with the top few fights, and they need more Mike Perrys. That Mike Perrys don't grow on trees, but and neither does money. But Mike Perry got a lot of money on Saturday night.
Mm-hmm. Vado, what did you think of Platinum Mike Perry? And side question: when you're hustling people on the hoops on the court, if they don't want to pay, is there anyone better in the world to take than Mike Perry to collect your money? I mean, he's just got this bravado, doesn't he?
Yeah, listen, I expected this. I'm not gonna lie. So I was a little bit surprised in the matchup. I get that I was a former champion, but the layoff and everything. But listen, I know Mike Perry's been calling out a lot of people, the Darren Tills, the Jake Pauls. He's down to be the backup for Paul and Mike Tyson. Like the guy wants to fight. So and not blaming him. I know it's not easy to match make, but I did expect this result. I think it's perfect for him. Continues to grow his brand, and he's the face of the promotion, and it's just he's drawing a lot of people in. A lot of people tune into BKFC because of him, and maybe only because of him. So I just hope we get to see one of those massive fights. I mean, I guess it's something we'll talk about in a bit, but a guy like Darren Till, I just think this fight needs to happen. But we saw Brian Barberina, like he just parted ways with the UFC, and he wants to fight Mike Perry. So there are a lot of guys who are willing to fight him, and I think his success is allowing BKFC to draw a lot of notable names, which will make for a lot more fun matchups. And we've seen weird ones. I mean, MVP and Mike Perry was super random, right? That was probably his closest fight there, but he's doing a really good job of just helping the promotion attract a lot of big names.
He's kind of bulletproof, right? Like
Mhm.
even if his next fight he took a loss, that's not going to make you want to watch him less the next one. Like every fight is just must see TV with that guy.
It sure is. I am a big fan of what Perry's done for himself, rejuvenating his career in another sport. I mean, like, this is tremendous. I want to go back to Fada. You mentioned Darren Till, and remember, years ago they were going to have just a little training session, and they look like they kind of get along, but they'll also won't hesitate to talk junk on each other. So this could have a good buildup because Till's got a little bit of that street swag. For those that don't know, he had to leave the country because he got in trouble for mixing it up with the wrong people. Went to Brazil, became a dad, learned a new language, went back to UFC, became a title challenger, all that. But do you lead? How would you, if you're Feldman, would you lead him towards fights like that? Which I think that's what Bare Knuckle kind of makes us fans want, is just two big names clashing, or do you take them through the route of belts and maybe making him, a decorated champ like Luis Palomino once was for them?
He is kind of the belt or the king of violence or whatever. Like he is, for me, he is BKFC right now. And the Darren Till fight, you have to make it. I don't know what the holdup is because it seems like both guys are interested. The buildup would be incredible and weird and funny because they have this weird like love hate relationship. Sometimes you don't understand. Like they go at each other, it seems tense, and then they tone it down. It's you see them on different podcasts and stuff like that. It would 100% be a lot of fun. A lot of people have been wanting to see Darren Till back and interested to see him back. I know his name has been linked with multiple promotions. I don't know what his next move is. He talks about getting back to UFC one day as well, but this is the fight to make. This is the fight people wanted to see in the UFC. We didn't get it. I think it would be absolutely a ton of fun if we saw it. I mean, Perry, the brawler, Till, perhaps the more technical fighter. But I just want to see it happen sooner rather than later because the longer the layoff for Darren Till, the more questions we'll have as to how he's going to look. So I don't know exactly what's going on with Darren, but I just hope we see it sooner rather than later.
Nolan, do you agree? Title fights or money fights for Perry?
I think you could do either. I think that's the good thing about him. But I mean, Darren Till, as Farris said, is like the perfect sort of signing that Bare Knuckle needs to gravitate towards, right? Like I said at the beginning, somebody that can compete, somebody that people are interested in. And the Perry fight sells itself. I know David Feldman has said in the past that he's been in talks with Darren, and they're trying to get him on board. And so I don't really know what the holdup is. Maybe it's just strictly a money thing. Maybe Bare Knuckle's not giving him what he wants. Maybe he's still want to take more time off or whatever. But to me, that just seems like such a layup of a matchmaking, mission right there.
For sure. Yeah, I couldn't agree with more. It is a slam dunk. Pair these two up and let's get going. It's so hard to get fighters out of the UFC to be in these types of fights, and yet it's sitting there. You guys have brought up the money. Let's go over the money a little bit. I'll start with the main event. Mike Perry took 600 grand home for his effort there. What would it take him? Less than a minute. And then Thiago Alves, 200 grand for him, and this might be his last competition in combat sports, by the way. Nice way to go out for him. Tyrrell, the heavyweight champ, 100 grand for him. Lorenzo Hunt, 100 grand for him. They were the co-main eventers. And then another fight of note, we had Ben Rothwell, 150,000, and Todd Duffy, 85,000. That fight, actually, none of these top three fights really went very long, so they kind of do pretty good on the hourly rate. But guys, were your eyes kind of bulging out a little bit when you saw some of these payouts? I'm actually happy for some of these guys. Fada, what'd you think?
Yeah, I mean, Mike Perry absolutely deserves every bit of that money. Like I said, for a lot of people, like I've been on the fence a little bit about BKFC. I'm not gonna lie. I know we cover MMA. There's a lot of violence and whatnot, but I don't know how I felt about skin hanging off of people's faces and whatnot, especially back when we were watching Lobov and Jason Knight and stuff like that. But he has me interested. He's always in the headlines saying different things, the way he fights, the matchups that he's been put against, even matchups like Eddie Alvarez and Chad Mendes and stuff like that. There's some fun matchups at BKFC, but he absolutely deserves it because he's become the face of the brand, and he's drawing a lot of people into watching the sport and getting a lot of people who are interested to fight him and notable names to the organization. So absolutely happy for him. He deserves it. He's a character, he's a personality. He's found the perfect home for himself. So Mike absolutely deserves it. And yeah, I mean, some of the salaries, like it's good. It's good to see these fighters get paid. This is such a brutal sport, as I just mentioned, especially with BKFC. But obviously, there's a big discrepancy between the prelim fighters or the fighters fighting the beginning to the headliner, as when you compare it to the UFC, where maybe the lower tier fighters will tend to get paid higher than lower tier fighters in other organizations. But that's a different conversation. So I think maybe the discrepancy is a talking point that people will have. But seeing these notable names, veterans, you mentioned Thiago Alves headlined UFC 100. I mean, he's been fighting forever. So when you talk about the more notable names, yeah, absolutely, they deserve every penny. All fighters do. I mean, in a brutal sport like this, but there is a big discrepancy between the first fighters and then some of the more notable names on the main card and whatnot.
Yeah, I'm seeing Karate Hate Tunes kind of smashing the payouts there. And look, I just think a lot of people tuned in for Rothwell Duffy and Mike Perry and Thiago Alves, and that's kind of how boxing is as well. It's very low when it comes to the prelims. I'll shout out the UFC. You know, I think they're either at 10-10 or 12-12 now, but it took them years. I mean, if you grade them on a curve, I think BKFC is actually paying some pretty decent money. Now, there was, I think, a peanut salesman or someone that did make only $500. That one kind of sucked to look at, but 5-5. I mean, that's what Dana White Contender Series was paying, I think, in the first season as well. So I don't know. I think Karate Ted Tunes is really what it is. Really should rethink what he's saying there. But Goes, what do you think, man? Like I say, aren't you kind of impressed with how BKFC is, the moves that they're making for an organization that's not even 10 years old?
Very much so, you know, especially with the fighters up at the top. I think when we look at those lower salaries for some of the people on the undercard, in mixed martial arts, you could go out there and lose a fight by submission, take very many shots, and maybe it doesn't hurt as much, you know. But in this one, it's just, there's no way around it. It's violence. You're getting paid whatever that is, $500 for what takes place in there. That one's a little bit hard to stomach, right? Like you look at David Diaz and what was the guy's name? Shane Jordan. That was a crazy fight. I mean, they were exhausted. They were bashing each other left and right. I think they took home like $4,000 or something. Was that worth it? Maybe not. But the one thing I will say about BKFC is if you are popping, if you're doing a good job, they bring you back. And I think that's how they increase your payment. So we'll have to see. But yeah, what they sling out, man, that's pretty damn impressive.
Yeah. And I guess, I don't know, what do you think, Nolan? Do you think owner Conor McGregor might up the ante here now that you see how I slipped that in, by the way? He's now a part owner.
No,
for those that don't know, with Bare Knuckle, big announcement. They always do this big announcements over at Bare Knuckle. He's a part owner. Do you think he might help out, you know, getting some of that money to go up for the fighters?
Yeah, no, I mean, anytime you can throw his name on something fight related, I'm sure it comes with, you know, if he's investing in you, you got the money coming from him, and you also, everything he does, as David Feldman said, turns to gold. People are going to pay attention more. It seems like it adds a layer of legitimacy, right, to have the biggest star ever in MMA history and one of the biggest combat sports stars ever attach their name to your brand. So I don't think it hurts any. In terms of these payouts, I think it was interesting to see. Most states, as we know, or a lot of states, don't reveal the payouts. California does. We only had ever seen Bare Knuckle pay one other time at a fight night in New Mexico. And the thing that I noticed between then and now was the fact that it seems Bare Knuckle has switched over to doing the flat purse sort of thing. Like they don't have the win show. It's just everyone gets the flat amount. And something that I've heard as well that wasn't reported because it's not disclosed pay is that a lot of these fighters are getting something called a knockout bonus. Essentially, since so many of these fights end in some form of TKO, that they give fighters a small payment, the ones that have it built into their contracts, if they get something that's deemed a knockout. Not like a standing TKO or something like that, or a cut, but like an actual, like I think Mike Perry's thing would have qualified. You know, Thiago didn't get up before the count of 10, those sort of things. So we always talk about flat pay in MMA and whether that would work to get rid of the win bonus and to make it be a flat sum. So Bare Knuckle is kind of experimenting with that, it seems, and not experimenting. They've almost fully transitioned over there. So that was just from an industry standpoint, something I found unique and interesting about seeing those numbers on Saturday.
And Nolan, what did you think of the announcement? Because Joseph Boza in the comment section, he's saying this one came out of nowhere. He didn't have it on his bingo card for 2024. Was it on your bingo card?
Not necessarily, but I did think it was interesting when Conor showed up last year to BKFC, kind of just totally unannounced. I thought it was a little bit unusual for him and just big stars in the sport in general. And then obviously since then, his different like Forged Irish Stout as a sponsor. It seems like I've seen a lot more crossover between his media outlet and his brands to bare knuckles. So I'm not surprised by any means. I wasn't expecting it, but it's not like totally a shock.
Mm-hmm. Goes Big Ben Rothwell. We talked to him before the fight. You could tell he definitely was expecting to do more, win, but do more in the process, meaning fight more, maybe get the clean stoppage, and then obviously elevate his status. How much of that do you think he accomplished from what you could tell that he really wanted, which is to be a big star, of this brand and help it build?
Well, the fight didn't really play out probably the way he wanted, even though he did put him down and he gets the victory. But it just wasn't what I think he had talked about going into the fight, with some kind of emphatic finish, right? To just something that they can't overlook. I don't know that happened. However, when he did pick up the mic, screamed at the crowd, kind of put them all on his side, I think he did gain a little bit of momentum. It was such a weird feeling because you saw like what happened to Todd Duffy, you saw what happened to Lorenzo Hunt. You almost wished Mick had just walked out. And neither of them really put in that much time and let them do it right then and there.
Yeah.
It felt like we had been cheated out of 2 fights, but I think that's the fight to make, man. I think Ben and Mick would be a great fight. I think you have something with Ben Rothwell. He's got the look and he loves to do it. So, and he came in great shape. I would love to see that fight.
Yeah, Duffy was doubting that he was going to come in, but he actually did come in, look good. Yeah, I like this gladiator fit. Mike Perry obviously is the guy, and I think even Rothwell's conceded that to him, but they got something in Rothwell. Big dude in such a menacing and violent sport, and he's all about it. But Ben's also told us there's just not much time left, so let's get him in that title fight, and then let's see if he can win, defend, and then maybe sail off. But it looks like he wants to be with these guys for a while.